Hi, I'm Sergio Garcia, captain of Fireballs GC and 2017 Masters champion. Welcome to my LIV lesson.
Absolutely brilliant by Sergio Garcia. This was so close to an ace.
The man to watch today, of course, Sergio Garcia.
On this lesson, I'm going to give you some tips to make sure that you can improve your ball striking, one of the most important parts of our game. Hi everyone, here at the range. I'm here hitting mid-irons. I got a 6-iron in my hand. And I'm just gonna show you a little bit what I go through, what I try to do to become a good ball striker. You know, I think that's the goal for today. So I'm gonna try to give you a couple of tips to see if we can achieve that. So obviously for me, there's a few things that I wanna make sure that I do well. I think that setup is obviously very important. So sometimes my problem will be I'll get a little low and a little open, and then my body gets out of rhythm. So for me, it's important to make sure that my setup is good, it's nice and square. I try to make sure that this left knee doesn't get behind, so just make sure I have it locked in nicely there, a little bit forward. There's different kinds of players. There's guys that sway a little bit more. I try to stay on my left side pretty much as I can through the shot. So my weight is going to be a little bit more on the left leg than on the right, and I'm going to try to keep it there. So good setup. Make sure I keep my height nicely, and I'm going to do that through the swing. You know, I want to make sure that I give myself, my arms and my body room to swing. You know, if I start dipping down, then I have to do something to make sure I don't hit the ball very heavy. So I want to make sure that I keep my height, but then I throw my hands and my arms at it so I can reach down to the ball. You know, let me hit one and then we can talk about it. So, like I said, good setup there. Ball pretty much in the middle of the stance, maybe a tiny bit forward with the mid iron. Just nice setup. And then just keep my height and finish nice and strong on the left side. That's one of the most important things, to make sure that you get through the ball. You know, sometimes you see a lot of people getting here, and from here, it's either gonna be a block, or if you let your hands go, it's gonna be a big hook. So for me, those are some of the most important things, to make sure that I'm here, keep my height, finish nice and strong on the left side, and you're trying to get your body to look towards the target. You know, there's obviously a few personal things that my swing has. I mean, obviously I have one of the biggest lag you see on tour, even though my swing has definitely changed a little bit through the years as I've gotten older and bigger. So when I was maybe 18, 19, my swing was a little bit more out, even more of a drop. As I got a little bit older and a little bit stronger, it was a little bit more difficult to control that. So what I did was I started swinging a little bit more, making sure that I swing a little bit more online here. You know, I still have that movement, which is, we always kind of called it like pulling the chain and pulling the chain down, and that's what helps me get my hands in position here. You know, even though they go like here, when I pull down, then when I'm right in this area, my hands are right where I want them to be, and from here, then I can just hit, release, and kind of go through. You know, one of the most important things when it comes down to hitting irons is the strike. So obviously, for me, if I can keep my weight right on top of the ball and not move it too much, you know, I can get that consistency on the strike a lot better, and that's going to help me not only with the type of shot that I want to hit, but with the distance. You know, the more consistent you are with your strike, the more consistent you are with your distance, and then you can work on your ball flight depending on the wind or something like that. But that's probably one of the most important things, you know, making sure that you're striking the ball consistently and solid. So there, keep the weight there, and then, like I said earlier, make sure you finish nice and strong on your left side. I mean, for me personally, I love everything that you can do with your irons, you know, the different spins that you can put on, but it all starts with a good setup, with a good base work, I guess. Make sure that your stability is good, so then your contact can be as good as possible. When you're able to get good contact over and over on the golf ball with your irons, then you can play with ball flights, you can play with spin, you can play with, you know, right to left, left to right, all those kind of things, and it gives you so many options going into different greens. So I think it's you know, it's one of the most important things in the game. So lag in a swing will be the move that your arms and your shaft kind of make. So a non-lag player will be more like a Adam Scott or a Nick Faldo, someone like that, which is more like a here, the top of the swing is here, and then the back just kind of comes, very little movement on the shaft. The shaft kind of goes back and forth like this. I have lag on my swing because when I was little, when I was, you know, 10, 12, 14 years old, I was very short. So I developed that to generate more speed, to be able to hit the ball a little bit farther, and so the guys that were older than me wouldn't hit it much farther than me. What happened was that, you know, I would go here, and from here, if I went just straight back down, obviously you could hit it well, but you would hit it a lot. I couldn't generate as much speed. So the lag was from here, kind of dropped a little bit the hands, obviously drops a little bit the shaft, so the shaft goes from here to here instead of that way. And then that helps me generate a little bit more speed with my hands, and then I can control it with my body. It's quite simple. The key to good balance and a nice rhythm is just like you would do dancing salsa, you know? You just gotta keep it. It's something that, for me, I do naturally, so I don't have to think too much about it. So at the end of the day, the most important thing for me, it's like when I'm here, my hands just come back to this position. At the end of the day, the most important thing in golf is these 2 feet. Like from here to here. If you can get your club doing the right thing from a foot or foot and a half before the ball and a foot past it, that's all you need. Obviously, the better your backswing is and the better the start of your downswing is, it's maybe a little bit easier to control that area. But if you can get it consistently from here to here, that's all you need to hit it great and hit it exactly as you want. For me, a good setup obviously starts from your feet up, you know, trying to make sure that everything is aligned as well as possible, you know, feet, knees, hips, shoulders. Then for me personally, you know, just making sure that my height on my setup, that I have enough room for me to be able to swing, and then, you know, the stability of it, it's important to make sure that your body's not going up and down too much while you're swinging. Obviously there's going to be some movement there, but you don't want it to be fluctuating too much, because then you have to maneuver with your arms to make sure that you don't hit it heavy or you know, thin, things like that. So I think that's why it's so important to, if you have a good setup, it's going to help you with being stable, and that's going to help you with striking the ball better. Obviously, if it was easy to do, everyone would do it. Let's start with that. But like I said earlier, if you start with good basics, it's gonna help you throughout the whole swing. So if your setup is like this and you're like that, I mean, obviously then it's gonna be much more difficult for you to be consistent on those 2 feet that you need to be good. So obviously if you work on a good setup, I think at the end of the day, you know, the most important thing is obviously to trust it, and for me, is to make sure that you get through the ball. I see a lot of people, a lot of amateurs don't get through the ball. So then when you're getting the speed with your arms and your hands and you stop your body, then that speed takes over and it's very difficult to control. If you can keep matching that speed with your body and getting through, then it's much easier for you to control your club and your speed through impact. That's one of the things that I try to tell amateurs the most. Obviously, it's, you know, once they get to the top of the backswing, make sure that they drop their hands and they don't swing with their shoulders first, so they don't get outside the line. So for me, the 2 most important moves for an amateur will be this. Make sure that they do this little move to make sure that the club it's coming on the right line, maybe a little bit on the inside, and then this one, getting through the ball strong and finishing looking at the target instead of being up here or, you know, whichever other way you want to go. So I think those for me are probably 2 of the most important moves that an amateur, if he can work on it and be consistent with it, they can help a lot. I think that obviously, you know, getting on the tee box and hitting a bomb in a drive straight down the middle, it's something very fulfilling, and you know, it's something that we all want to do. But to be totally honest, when you hit a mid or long iron, even a short iron, and you hit a great shot exactly like you want it, crisp, and it comes out exactly like you want with the spin that you want, and then obviously you hit it, you know, very close to a foot or a couple of feet. That feeling, it's amazing, because not only it gives you, you know, that sense of doing exactly what you want, but at the same time you're hitting so close, so you're taking pressure off your putter, you're making an easy birdie, and obviously it's super important. Even though, you know, hitting a nice bomb driver down the middle, it's always fun. I think mentally, it's a little bit more doubts on my mind. When you have more doubts, you're not swinging as freely, you're not swinging as smoothly. But the other thing for me when it comes down to mechanics would be when I start missing shots is because I get a little tentative, and because instead of doing that and getting nice and through the ball, like my first move will be this one, and if I get here, then usually I mishit it. Usually carve it right, because I would mishit it, it will come out with more spin. I won't start in the line that I wanted. That's why for me it's super important to make sure that my setup is good, that my weight is a little bit on the left leg, and then I keep it there and I get through. If I can do that, even if I miss the shot, it's a lot more consistent, a lot more solid than if I get here and then I try to save it somehow, you know, with my hand. You know, when you're getting into that single-digit handicap players or even below 5 handicap, I think their mechanics are already quite good. So for them to be able to score better is going to be more avoiding silly mistakes and probably being a little bit better with the wedge games. At that kind of handicap, you already know that they hit the ball quite well, they hit it quite consistent, they know what they're doing mostly. So if from those 120 yards, 125 yards in, if they can get a little bit better with distance control, spin control, knowing the kind of shot they want to hit depending on the situation, and being able to get up and down more often than not, they can save so many shots, because not only they can make a lot more birdies when they're in that situation, but also if they hit a bad drive and they have to chip out, you know, you have a tough, you hit in the trees and you have a tough shot, or you might have a little window, but it's very minimal. And if you try to go for it and you don't get it, you're probably gonna make a double or a triple. So to have the confidence of, you know, I'm gonna chip it out to 80 or 90 yards, and I know that from there, I'm gonna give myself at least a 10, 12 footer inside of that for par. You know, you can shave a lot of shots, you can save a lot of shots that way. And that's kind of works for us too, same thing. I mean, I think at the end of the day, routines are important. You don't want to get too caught up on them, but they're important because it gives you a momentum and a stability when it comes down to your shots. So for me, usually what I do is a step behind the ball, kind of do a practice swing, looking at the target that I wanna aim at, and then usually it's, you know, step into the ball, get my setup correctly, and then do my waggle and then hit. But yeah, that's usually what I do. You know, I will start with obviously picking the club and whatever, but stand behind the ball, do a little practice swing, kind of see the target that I want to aim at and the shot that I want to hit, and then just step into it and hit it. I like to try to swing the same way with every single club. Obviously, when it comes down to the driver and stuff like that, you might hit it up a little bit more because of the technology and the balls and everything to make sure that you get the most out of it. But the basics of the swing is still the same. And for me, when I play my best is when I'm driving the ball well. So when I feel like my driver swing goes well into my iron swing, I think that's, for me, that's ideal. So when I have a driver that I'm comfortable with and I know that I can just do the same thing that I'm doing with my irons and hit it well, that for me, it's the ideal situation. Well, I gave you all my best tips to hopefully improve your ball striking. So now it's your turn to go out there and put it to play.